Hello and welcome guys back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over my week 11 NFL power rankings. So let's just jump into it right away. At number 32 I have the Jets. I don't think this was going to come as a surprise to anyone. The Jets are very bad. They were on a bye week this week as well, so that means I don't really have to talk about how bad they are. So I'm just going to move on to my number 31 team. That's the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys were also on bye week, so there's not really much to talk about here. I will talk because I haven't ever made a power rankings video before, so you can get my opinion on the Steelers game. When they played the Steelers, they were pretty competitive, and so that defense started to look a little bit better, which is what you want to see. It was very bad at the beginning of the year, and Andy Dalton's coming back next week, so I could definitely see them kind of looking more like an actual NFL team during the latter end of the season, and I could definitely see them climbing up my power rankings. So, next team I have is the Jags. They played the Packers this week, and the score was pretty close. They kept it close with a far superior team. So if you're Jags fans, it's probably a enjoyable week for you guys. The defense played well. They held the Packers offense, that's great, to 24 points, which, not very many teams can say they did that this year. I will say, though, Jake Luton was not as good this week. He just wasn't very good at all. But he's not your franchise guy. You have Gardner Minshew, who maybe he isn't your franchise guy, but he's at least solid right now. So, Jaguars, not a very good team, but they played all right last week. Next team I have is the Washington football team. They're again they're number 29. They're not a very good team. But a positive thing is that Alex Smith was actually able to move this offense, move the ball a little bit. He had like 400 passing yards or something, which is crazy for a Washington quarterback given the severe lack of weapons that they have there. Terry McLaurin's obviously great. But their offense looked okay this week. Defense this year overall has just been a little bit disappointing. I thought their defense was going to be great. It's just been kind of average, but not a bad game by any means for the football team. They're just not very good. Next up, I have the Broncos, and this is a team that did have a very bad game. So they got blown out by the Raiders. Drew Lock, this year has kind of been his audition per se. To be that franchise quarterback for the Broncos, and he has not looked like a franchise quarterback whatsoever. This week was his worst game. He had 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, and a fumble, and he's just not very good. He's not a very good quarterback. I don't really believe in Drew Lock. I was really interested to see what he was going to do this year, but he's just been below average, and then this week he was just awful. On the defensive side of the ball, they're okay. Their secondary's solid. Derek Carr didn't have a huge game this week, which Derek Carr's been great this year. So holding him to I don't even think he threw a touchdown this week. They did not move the ball so much through the air this week. So Broncos, not a very good team. They're just going for next year. Number 27, I have the Bengals. The Bengals didn't play as bad as the scoreboard would tell you this week. They allowed like 40 points or something. They got beat by at least 20 to the Steelers. But if it wasn't for a couple of like fluky fumbles, I think this game would have been a lot closer. They just kind of played okay all over. Joe Burrow wasn't excellent this week, but he's been excellent, obviously. This wasn't his best game. And the defense kind of got run over at the end of the game, but defense was okay as well. Bengals are in below average, but not terrible team. 26, I have the Giants. I'm really impressed with what Joe Judge has been able to do this year for the Giants. Daniel Jones has also taken a big step up, and this team reminds me a lot of the Dolphins of last year. They have very little talent, and then they have a Belichick disciple as a rookie head coach that kind of built a good culture and made a cohesive unit, and they've looked okay this year. They've looked okay this year. They played very well against the Eagles, and they earned the win. So, and especially with Daniel Jones, if Daniel Jones can play like this for the rest of the year, you might actually think about not taking a quarterback in the draft next year. So maybe he'll be able to play like this. Kind of doubt it, but we'll see. Number 25, I have the Texans. They are so inconsistent. Uh, you know, they have so many weapons on offense, and even some good players on defense. And usually, it's like their offense plays pretty well, and their defense kind of struggles. But this week, it was completely the other way around. Deshaun Watson and their loaded receiving core failed to put up like any points. They scored 7 points the entire game. That's pathetic. So they're just so inconsistent. They can't really seem to figure out how to win a game. But I don't think they're as bad as their record would say. I don't think they're 2-17, but they just can't figure out how to win. Number 24, I have the Niners. They're only this low because of injuries, obviously. Nick Mullins is your starting quarterback. That's not what you want to see at all. And they're just so injured. Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. He kept it close at the beginning of the game, but the coach can only do so much. You actually need you actually need to make the players to make some plays. So their roster just is not very good right now. They're like a practice squad essentially. So pretty rough season for the Niners. Number 23, I have the Eagles. Another rough season, but this is just because they're horribly coached. They're the complete opposite of Niners. They have so much talent, and just Doug Peterson's a terrible coach. Not creative at all with his play calling. Carson Wentz has been a disaster this year, and then they just lost to the Giants, which could be a game that potentially causes them to not win the division. So the NFC East is just a disaster. I've already named every team in the NFC East. Eagles are no good. I don't think any of these teams deserve to be in the playoffs, but one of them has to make it. Probably the Eagles. 22, I have the Falcons. They were on a bye week this week, so not really much to say there. I will say, though, now that Dan Quinn is gone, they are kind of figuring out how to win some games. They held on to a close game last week. So I think that they could probably put together 7 or 8 wins this year. They're pretty average. 21, I have the Chargers. Another pretty close game against the Dolphins this week. Wasn't as close as their past games. It didn't come down to the last play or anything, but it was a 2-score game. Justin Herbert, this was his worst game, but he didn't play badly. Didn't really have much of a chance. The play calling was pretty conservative. They had a lot of just runs up the middle and a lot of screen passes. So Justin Herbert's a great player. I think if they let him kind of stretch the field a little bit more, they probably could have scored some more points and maybe even had a chance to win this game. But that's not how it went. The Chargers just can't figure out how to win. Number 20, I have the Lions. And it's weird because their defense is like the thing about this team that I like the least. I think their defense is the worst part, and that's strange because they have a defensive head coach, Matt Patricia. You'd think that their defense would be the strength, and maybe their offense was kind of struggling, but that's been the complete opposite. Matthew Stafford had a good game. He's a great player. And DeAndre Swift, the rookie running back that they picked in the second round, I believe, he had a great game. He had a breakout game. So, good. The Lions' offense has been good. Defense, not so much. They're pretty average. Next up is the Panthers. This is a really young team. I think they're in good hands. Matt Rule, I think, is a really good head coach. They have a nice culture. They're really scrappy. They're just pretty young. They got blown out by the Bucks, although I do think that, again, it was closer than the scoreboard would suggest. They kind of blew it at the end a little bit, but they kept it pretty close with a very good team in the Bucks. I think they're still a year or two away, but they're a good team. Number 18, I have the Pats. And I know that people are going to want the Pats to be like top probably 16 or so because they beat the Ravens and they're like 4-5. They're just so like deprived of talent. Bill Belichick's a great coach, but Cam Newton, I just don't trust at all. I don't think Cam Newton's a very good quarterback at all anymore. And then the defense is cohesive. The entire team's well coached. They don't make too many mistakes. They don't have very much talent. I don't see them being very good this year. I think they're probably going to finish with around 7, 8, maybe 9 wins. But I don't see them as a playoff team. Number 17, I have the Bears, and they just got embarrassed pretty much by the Vikings on primetime this week. Their offense is pathetic. Nick Foles went down with an injury, which you never want to see, but that actually might be beneficial for them because he was just not making any plays for them on offense. Their defense has still been great, but I think if we get to see Mitch Trubisky next game, that could be a good thing for them, honestly, even though Mitch Trubisky definitely isn't a good quarterback. He can maybe provide some life to this pretty lifeless team right now. Number 16, I have the Vikings, the team that beat the Bears. And they're just, they're a solid team. They started off really rough. They're probably too far behind in the standings right now to make a playoff push, but they might be able to sneak in with a wild card if they play really well second half of the season. Kirk Cousins played okay. Dalvin Cook is on fire right now. Didn't have a great game versus the Bears, but Bears have a great run defense. And their defense stepped up. Their pass rush looked a lot like the pass rush had the best game of the season probably this week against the Bears. So if the pass rush can play like that the rest of the season, I think they can win some games. Number 15, I have the Browns. The Browns did beat the Texans, but I kind of count it as a loss for both teams. They were both pretty disappointing. The Browns were good on defense. Anytime you hold Deshaun Watson and the Texans' offense to 7 points, that's a success. But you know what? You want to see more from that offense with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They both played well. That run game is just awesome. But Baker Mayfield struggled quite a bit this week. And they're just inconsistent. They're a pretty confusing team to me. Number 14, I have the Dolphins coming off their 5th straight win, this one against the Chargers. Tua has looked great. He didn't play very well against the Rams, but against the Cardinals and then now against the Chargers, Tua played really well, so that's really good to see. I just don't really see this offense being too great. They really lack weapons. Preston Williams, one of their best playmakers on offense, just went down with an injury. Myles Gaskin's out. They got rid of Jordan Howard, who was a complete bust of a signing. My God, terrible signing. Matt Breida's out. He might be back next week, though. So right now it's kind of just Devontae Parker, maybe a little bit of Mike Gesicki than Tua on offense. Offensive line's not very good. But the reason that the Dolphins are able to win so many games is their defense and special teams. They're so well coached. This defense is so cohesive. The special teams has made some awesome plays the last couple weeks that's really helped them win some key games. So I think the Dolphins are definitely a playoff team. Number 13, I have the Raiders. Raiders offense is so fun to watch this year, and even this week their defense stepped up. 4 picks is pretty awesome. So, they have some playmakers on defense. Their offense is great. They're gritty. They're tough. It's a John Gruden team. Derek Carr has had a revitalization after that 2016 season where he was an MVP candidate. He hadn't really been great, and he's been really good this year. So, Raiders are a legit team. I think that they could actually make a playoff run this year. Number 12, I have a team the complete opposite of the last 2 teams I talk about. Their wheels are really falling off of the Titans' wagon right now. They have lost 3 of their last 4 games. Ryan Tannehill has been kind of forced out of his comfort zone with that play action game. He's had to go through his reads and drop back a little bit more. Has not looked very comfortable. Derrick Henry can't carry the entire offense, although he does try. He's a very good running back. And the defense got picked apart by Phillip Rivers last week. So, I don't even know what's happening with the Titans right now. They're just losing games. They're not looking very good. Everything's not looking very good. So, I have trust that they're going to bounce back. I think Mike Vrabel's a very good coach. But they're just looking pretty rough right now. Number 11, I have the Rams. Rams have been very good the last couple weeks. Defense was great this week against the Seahawks and Russell Wilson. Darius Williams stepped up 2 interceptions against Russell Wilson. And the offense, Jared Goff is what he is. He's okay. And the run game, Sean McVay, I think, does a very good job designing runs. And they have some decent talent there running back, some solid receivers. Rams are just a real solid team. They have some nice players on defense, and I think they're a good team. Number 10, I have the Colts. They beat the Titans this week, blew them out. Phillip Rivers really came to play. He had a very nice game, which is good to see if you're the Colts. He didn't so much force the ball downfield with his depleted arm as he had been previously this season. Their defense has some crazy good playmakers. DeForest Buckner's been great this year. Darius Leonard's great. They're just a great team overall. I do think that Phillip Rivers might, kind of regress to the mean a little bit more. But hey, if he's learning the scheme and he can kind of go into that Ben Roethlisberger role, kind of not really forcing the ball downfield, just keeping it in the short to intermediate passing game, I think that they can be a really good team. I think they can be a team similar to the Steelers. Number 9, I have the Cardinals. They had a awesome win this week against the Bills. The catch at the end of the game obviously was incredible. DeAndre Hopkins is amazing. Kyler Murray is amazing. This defense can make some plays. They have some nice playmakers. Isaiah Simmons is getting on the field a little bit more, which is cool. And the running game is the thing that I want to talk about the most. They got the running game involved. Kenyon Drake had his first really good game of the season. Trace Edmonds was good again. He's been really steady all season. And yeah, they're just a really well-coached team. I like Cliff Kingsbury a lot, and I think the Cardinals are a legit contender. Number 8, I have the Bills. I'm a little bit lower on the Bills than most people, but they're an awesome team. Josh Allen's been great this year, although he is a little bit flawed. He showed those flaws this week. He threw 2 picks. And their defense hasn't been amazing. Run defense was quite bad this week. Secondary was good, which you like to see. Trey White was good. He's been a little bit disappointing this year. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. So the Bills are a really good team. I just don't really think that I don't trust them as much as most people would. I think most people have them higher than 8, but they're still a really good fun team. Number 7, I have the Ravens. Most people would probably have them lower than this, especially after the pretty embarrassing loss, frankly, to the Patriots. Definitely, they should have won that game. The run game has kind of collapsed here. Teams are catching on to the read option, kind of gimmicky offense that they used last year, so Lamar Jackson hasn't been quite as efficient with his legs. Mark Ingram took a huge step back. J.K. Dobbins has been good, not great. The Ravens are just kind of struggling right now, but I think John Harbaugh is a really good coach. I think that he'll get them back on track here, and I think that the Ravens are still going to be a good team. It's funny though with Lamar Jackson. I think that last year people overrated him quite a bit. He won MVP, and he had a great year. But people were talking about him like he was a top 2 quarterback. And then this year they're talking about him like he's not even a top 10 quarterback. I think that he's somewhere in the middle there. I think he's probably about 6 or 7. He's an average passer, but what he does with his legs is awesome. He's a good player. Number 6, I have the Seahawks. They're kind of struggling right now as well. Russell Wilson had another kind of not very good game. This was definitely his worst game of the season. And then that defense is just pathetic. I don't really want to talk about it. It's so bad. Jamal Adams has been disappointing. Bobby Wagner has been disappointing. Their pass rush has been pretty good, that's something I hear a lot of people talk about how bad their pass rush is. Their pass rush has been solid. Run defense isn't. They're just kind of a disaster. They're not kind of a disaster. They're a huge disaster on defense right now. But I think Pete Carroll, he's a defensive-minded coach. He'll help get that back on track. I think they'll be a little bit better the second half of the season. And I think Russell Wilson is gonna, figure things out. He's gonna stop. The issue I had with him the last week or two, he's kind of tried to play a lot of hero ball. I could kind of feel that he knows how bad his defense is, so he feels like he has to put up, and he's not wrong, he has to put up 30, 40 points every week if he wants a chance to win. And it just kind of didn't really work out for him. He was forcing passes. He wasn't super accurate. And so he was part of the reason they lost this week. He has not played well. Number 5, I have the Saints. And I would have the Saints higher. I would have them at 3, I think. Probably because they've been amazing the last couple of weeks. The only reason I drop them down a bit is because Drew Brees is gone. And now you have Jameis Winston, who's been not a very reliable quarterback in the past. And not only that, he's going to have to figure out an entirely new scheme. Like, he was on the Bruce Arians aggressive, push the ball downfield offense last year. Now he's transitioning to a super conservative, like, run the ball and short to intermediate passing game offense with Sean Payton. So I think that's going to take a little bit of adjusting. I do believe in him. I think he's going to be okay. But I think that could maybe take some figuring out, and I think they might struggle a little bit. But Saints are a great team. As long as Drew Brees is back before the playoffs, I think they're definitely a Super Bowl contender. Number 4, I have the Packers. They had an off week this week against the Jaguars, but they're still a really good team. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a huge game, which is funny because Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I always make fun of him. He cannot catch the ball, but he caught the ball really well against the Jaguars, and he had a huge game because he's so explosive. And so, if he can be a reliable threat to Aaron Rodgers, this offense can be really good. Devontae Adams is obviously a great receiver. Aaron Rodgers didn't have a great game. The run game's good. Defense is maybe a little shaky at points. Their pass rush has not been as good as most people expected. They're really at number 4 because some of the teams I do view as probably being better than them are struggling immensely right now, and they're not struggling as bad. So, Packers are a great team, but I don't really view them as a serious Super Bowl contender. Number 3, I have the Buccaneers, another team that's kind of struggled. But I will say it was awesome to watch this offense this week. Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, if he can play well. Ronald Jones is super explosive. I think really, and then the defense is great, obviously, too. Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea, Antoine Winfield, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Devin White, Lavonte David. They have so much talent on that defense, so much talent on that offense. I think it's really a matter of just Tom Brady being consistent, which he hasn't been consistent at all this year. He shows some flashes, but I don't really like the scheme fit here with Bruce Arians. I don't think he's out of his comfort zone here. So I think he actually might be holding them back a little bit. But if he can be top 10 quarterback, top 7 quarterback, I think that they're definitely in a good spot to win a Super Bowl. It's just a matter of how well Tom Brady plays. And then number 2, this is very controversial, but I have the Steelers. Most people are going to want to have them at number 1 since they're undefeated. The Steelers have been incredible this year, but it's really just a matter of a team at number 1, the Chiefs. You're comparing Patrick Mahomes to Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers have a far superior defense, but I still don't think any defense can stop Patrick Mahomes. And the Steelers' offense just isn't. I don't really trust them too much. They have been able to make some big plays this year. They have an awesome receiving core, and Big Ben has been good this year. So they've been really successful. They're really well coached. I just don't think they're quite as good as the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs edge them out a little bit. But that was my Week 11 power rankings. I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching.